what's up, YouTube? I'm back. This is your boy Alex. It's gonna be a while before I can get the new sports channel underway. Gotta, set up a new password by going back to Google, because the new changes that Google is gonna have for, YouTube and for Google is gonna be next month, which is March. So it's gonna be a while, but I will set up the new password and I will have a new sports channel, and you will get these episodes. So if you don't get episode 1 and 2 on the new sports channel, you're going to get episode 1 and episode 2 and episode 3 on my other YouTube channels. The reason why I'm making a second sports channel is I'm going to run out of space on the actual sports channel, so that's the purpose of having another backup channel to the sports channel. Now, I did promise you that there will be no interruptions. I know episode 1 was very difficult to make because we had too many people calling the house phone. We had too many people knocking on the door. Everybody's trying to come out on a Monday and do their business. And sometimes it becomes a pain in the ass when people just want to bother you on a Monday and don't want to leave you alone. So today's a little better because today's my last day on my mini vacation. I probably won't get another one of these for I want to say maybe around April, maybe June. Either April or May, possibly June. So it might be another 2 or 3 months before I get another 5 to 6 days vacation. It might be another 2 or 3 months before I ever get a vacation like this again. Cause tell you the truth, I wasn't supposed to get 5 or 6 days off. I was supposed to get like 3 or 4 days off, and the person who does the schedule by accident, they gave me 5 or 6 days off by accident. And when I come to work tomorrow, they're going to work the hell out of me Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, Monday. And I probably won't get a day off until next Tuesday or next Wednesday. And they might even make me work all of Tuesday and probably won't give me until next Wednesday or next Thursday off. I'm just trying to give you guys an idea of where I'm headed. Yes, there is another movie coming out that I want to go see called The Invisible Man, which I probably won't get a chance to see that until the second week because of how my work schedule is. Now, with further ado, let's get on with the second episode. It's going to be Sugar Ray Leonard, 4-time world champion in boxing, versus Floyd Mayweather Jr., 6-time world champion in boxing. Now, this is a fight that's been talked about for years in the boxing world. And not just in the boxing world, but in the world of sports. People have wondered what would have happened if Sugar Ray Leonard in his prime versus Floyd Mayweather Jr. in his prime. Now, the reason why this fight is actually could have been possible in a video game scenario where I am going to take that very idea and ask what would happen if these two warriors fought in the ring. Now, you do know Sugar Ray Leonard started his boxing career like in 1977 or in 1978 is when he started his boxing career, because he did try it out for the Olympics in 1975 or in 1976, and he got cut from the Olympic trials because he was just too young, and they didn't think that they should have I think at the time, a 14 or 15-year-old kid trying out, so it weren't until almost 3 years later that he would try again for the Olympics. He tried out, he fought, he picked up 2 gold medals, he met Muhammad Ali, he met Don King, and as they say, the rest is history. Now you gotta remember, he wasn't rich, he wasn't famous yet. He didn't come from no high-class family. He came from a middle-class background, and he was in some place, I think, Wilmington, I'm not sure, but then he was in Wilmington and in 2 other places, and then he met this beautiful black girl that's from Baltimore, and he ended up living in Baltimore, and then he had to leave Baltimore and reside in another location. And why boxing? He was supposed to just stay in amateur boxing, but then he made the rational decision at age 18 or age 19, he made that big-time decision to turn pro. And when he turned pro, oh man, he took the boxing world by storm. I mean, before Roy Jones Jr., before Jermaine Taylor, before Floyd Mayweather Jr., it was Sugar Ray Leonard that did all this stuff. He had an undotted boxing style. He could hit you with his left hand, and basically he fought a lot of southpaws in his boxing career. And Muhammad Ali's trainer Angelo Dundee ended up becoming, near I say, he became Sugar Ray Leonard's boxing trainer. And in his first fight, the fight went to 12 rounds. It actually was scheduled for 15, but he managed to outlast his opponent. And then he got real good. And then about 15 fights later, he had his first championship fight. He won his first championship title, and it made him into a WBC welterweight champion. And then by the time he got into 25 fights, it was like 5 years later, and he ended up beating, I think, some middleweight champion. So then he won two championship belts. So he was a two-time world champion. And then he met a fighter on the other side of the world named Roberto Duran, aka Hands of Stone. And this was probably like around 1981, 1982. He met Roberto Duran. He got beat, and Roberto Duran took his title. There was a rematch, and he beat him in a rematch, which we know the first fight went 15 rounds, or almost went 15 rounds. The second fight didn't even make it to 15, didn't even make it to 12 rounds. Somewhere in the fifth or sixth round of that fight, Roberto Duran threw his hands up and said no mas and quit, which shocked everyone in boxing. And Sugar Ray Leonard retained those belts. Then he went on to fight Thomas Hitman Hearn in their first fight. He knocked out Thomas the Hitman Hearns. Yeah, in their first fight. And then he went on to retire from boxing. He came back, I think, in 1984 or 1985. He came back and boxed. And it was a shock. He came back, he had a fight, he won, and he retired for the second time. And he was like 30 years old, 31 or 32 years old, and it was like 10 years later when Sugar Ray Leonard had retired. And then finally, somewhere in 1987 or in 1988, he would come out of retirement for the second time, and he would take on someone by the name of Marvelous Marvin Hagler. Now, Marvelous Marvin Hagler at that point had been doing boxing for like 13 years. He had over 60 professional fights. His record his record was 62 wins, 3 losses, and he had became a 4-time world champion because Marvelous Marvin Hagler was a middleweight. He was the welterweight. Then he was a light heavyweight, and then he became a super light heavyweight. So he won 4 championship belts and 4 weight classes. And Marvelous Marvin Hagler wanted to fight Sugar Ray Leonard. This was a fight that should have happened like 15 years ago at that time. And Sugar Ray Leonard got accused, and I say accused at the time, that he didn't want to fight Marvelous Marvin Hagler in his prime. See, there's a lot of talks and a lot of debate to why people were upset with why that fight took nearly as long as it took. Like, it took, like, on record, 8 years for that fight to happen. And when it did happen, it was like 1988, 1989 when the fight finally happened. They called it the Super Fight, or Super Fight 2. And it was for a championship belt, you know, and Sugar Ray Leonard beat Marvelous Marvin Hagler. The fight at that time was 12 rounds. We went from 15 rounds of boxing, because everyone's complaining that 15 rounds was way too many rounds for boxing. And these fights would last like 4 hours. Sometimes 4 hours and 25 minutes. So they cut it down to 12 rounds. And surprise, surprise, we had him win and beat Marvelous Marvin Hagler. There was a rematch scheduled. It never happened, because Sugar Ray Leonard said no to the idea of a rematch. And then he turned around and said yes to the idea of a rematch, but then Marvelous Marvin Hagler declined. Like I said, there's a lot of debate to what happened at that time. And we never got that rematch. Instead, we got a Sugar Ray Leonard versus Roberto Duran Part 3. Sugar Ray Leonard won by unanimous decision, my bad. We've had a Thomas Hitman Sugar Ray Leonard Part 2. Thomas Hitman Hearns won the rematch, but got cheated out of the fight. That was for a championship belt, and they gave the unanimous decision to Sugar Ray Leonard. That was twice. Thomas Hitman Hearns lost to Sugar Ray Leonard twice, which he argues that in the rematch, he knocked down Sugar Ray Leonard 4 times in the fight. He had him beaten 12 rounds. He dominated the fight. He looked good in the fight. Sugar Ray Leonard couldn't knock him out, couldn't hit him. This is when Sugar Ray Leonard was like 34 years old, far past his prime at this point. And, Sugar Ray Leonard said he won the fight, and it caused big controversial, and Thomas Hitman Hearns was enraged that this was the second time in his boxing career that he fought Sugar Ray Leonard, and he had the fight won. Like in the first fight, Thomas Hitman Hearns broke his hand, and that's why Sugar Ray Leonard won the first fight and knocked him out. Where in the rematch, which the rematch took place 10 years later, they gave the decision to Sugar Ray Leonard, and Sugar Ray Leonard won again, which kind of upset Thomas, the Hitman Hearns. Like, he was like, what, again? And he started to do the same thing. I want another fight. And we never got a Sugar Ray Leonard versus Thomas Hitman Hearns 3. Was going to try to do a third one. Never happened. And then Sugar Ray Leonard kept on fighting. And then finally, one day, he won another championship. He beat an unexperienced fighter. And he had fought this one guy when he turned 40 years old and got beat bad. And this was like in the 1990s. 1990, he came out of retirement for the third time and beat somebody. And then he kept fighting in 91, 92, 93. Retired again. And then by 95, going into 96, he got knocked out. This was the first time somebody knocked out Sugar Ray Leonard in a fight, which it should have never happened. And he finally, after turning 40 years old, finally realized he'd been in boxing for like 20 years. And he was like another version of Muhammad Ali. He had television commercials. He popped up in movies, television shows, commercials. He was Sugar Ray Leonard. And basically he realized that at 40 years old, he needed to retire. Now, in his 20 years of professional boxing, he has an incredible record of 36 wins and 3 losses. And he's a 4-time world champion in 4 weight classes. So, yeah, he won the championship 4 times, but he was trying to do something in boxing history that only a few boxers get to end their career with. He was trying to make himself into a 5-time world champion. And you have to think about it. He started his career in the late 70s, dominated the 1980s, did pretty good in the first half of the 1990s, but by the time we got to 96, you could kind of see he was way past his prime. He beat a lot of great fighters. He beat Roberto Duran. He beat Thomas Hitman Hearns twice. He beat Marvelous Marvin Hagler. There's so many fighters that he fought, that he beat, that he already had his name stamped in boxing greatness. But that same time period, there was another fighter that was coming up in the 1990s who would be greatly compared to him. And this fighter was Floyd Money Mayweather, or we call him Pretty Boy Floyd, but it's Floyd Mayweather Jr. Now, Sugar Ray Leonard had already fought his father twice. He actually fought his father twice, beat his father twice. He fought Uncle Roger, Roger Mayweather. He fought his uncle twice. He beat his uncle twice in the welterweight division. When Floyd Mayweather's father, Floyd Sr., became welterweight champion, he had 5 title defenses, and when he fought Sugar Ray Leonard beat him by unanimous decision. And then they had a rematch 5 years later, and he beat his father a second time. So he beat the father 2 times. He beat the uncle twice. And you got to remember, not Sugar Ray, but you got to remember, Floyd Mayweather Jr. has 3 uncles. And he eventually fought another one of the uncles once. So he already beat 3 Mayweathers in his boxing career. So you get why this video is being made now, don't you? Now, Floyd Mayweather Jr. got his start in 1996 of the Olympics in Atlanta, Georgia. Yeah, Atlanta, Georgia. Yes, you heard me. Atlanta, Georgia hosted the Olympics in 1996. And I remember 1996. That was the best year ever. It was 96. The Chicago Bulls won another NBA championship title. The Dodgers won the World Series. I'll have to double check, but I think baseball, we were good in basketball. We were good in football. An LA team in football won a championship in baseball. Sports was good in 96. Michael Jordan came back and won a title. Bill Clinton was the president of the United States of America before the sexual scandal of Monica Lewinsky. And everybody like Mad TV and Saturday Night Live was making fun of Bill Clinton with that. But we're not going to go into all of that. But my point is, 1996 was a good year. It was the Olympic Dream Team. The Olympic Dream Team won gold medals in 96. Kurt Angle, the professional wrestler, before Kurt Angle got to WWE. I mean, back then it was called WWF, but you know what I mean. We had Kurt Angle. Kurt Angle won Olympic gold medal with a broke neck. We had Mark Henry, the world's strongest man, Mark Henry, before he made his way to WWE. He was a professional weightlifter. So 96 was a good year. Floyd Mayweather won some gold medals and then turned professional in 96. And basically, he would call himself Pretty Boy Floyd. And he would just dominate. He had an orthodox boxing style himself. And immediately it drew big comparisons between Floyd Mayweather Jr. and Sugar Ray Leonard. The way they both market themselves, the way that they appeared in movies, television shows, commercials, the way that they got in the boxing ring, the way they entertained the fans in the crowd, the way that they would shout in the ring. Floyd's style was so unique that nobody done what Floyd was doing. Floyd came in the ring and became his own manager. He didn't trust nobody. And Sugar Ray Leonard started doing that in the second half of his boxing career, become the boxing promoter, become the manager. This is when Angelo Dundee had retired after a while and trained somebody else. And you could see that in the beginning, Floyd had 12 professional fights. His record was 12-0, undefeated. Then he was 15-0. Then he was 20-0. Then he was 23-0. And then he won the featherweight championship. Had 10 championship title defenses as the featherweight championship. Then he turns around and he decides he's going to win the WBC super featherweight. So he becomes a two-time world champion. Then he leaves and goes into the lightweight division, and he makes himself into a four-time world champion. All of a sudden, he's 30-0, 35-0, and he's just cleaning the division. They have to go get fighters from other cities and other states and other countries to come to the USA because every time Mayweather fight, he keeps cleaning out the division. They don't have nobody for him. He ended up fighting Sab Judah. He beats Sab Judah. He beats Baldomir. He then gets one of the biggest fights in all of pay-per-view history. Floyd Muddy Mayweather Jr. versus Oscar De La Hoya. And he beats Oscar De La Hoya. Like, he literally gave him a boxing lesson of a lifetime. And Oscar do what he always do. He didn't hurt me. He didn't touch me. I'm like, but you lost. Get over it. You lost. And his career just starts to heat up. All of a sudden, we see him taking on bigger opponents, stronger opponents. We see him fight, what's his name? Miguel Cotto. That was like a good fight. I mean, he fought him. We got to see him fight Sugar Mosley. He beat him. And then we get the fights that we all wanted to see. The same. This is where the comparison comes in. We wanted to see Floyd Mayweather Jr. versus Manny Pacquiao. We don't get that fight for almost 6 years. Finally, after we see him fight Michael Madonna 1 and 2, because he fights him 2 years in a row, beats this clown. We saw him fight Ricky Hatton, beats Ricky Hatton, takes his championship belt, makes himself into a 5-time world champion. Then we see Floyd turn himself into a six-time world champion. All of a sudden, this is like 15 years into his boxing career, he's won 6 championships. And then finally, what would we get? We finally get the fights we've been asking for. We get the fights because then he retires, he comes out of retirement. There's that domestic violence thing. He beats some guy named Burrito, beats him into submission. And then finally, we get the fight that we all been waiting for. It took us almost 7 years to get Floyd Mayweather Jr. versus Manny Pacquiao. And yeah, that fight was good because in the first half, the first 2 or 3 rounds, Manny Pacquiao was putting a whooping, and then all of a sudden, Mayweather just turned into Mayweather. Mayweather was too fast. Mayweather was just hitting him, tagging him. Mayweather was moving so fast and so quick, no matter what punch Manny Pacquiao threw. Manny threw a punch on the right, couldn't hit Mayweather. Manny threw a punch on the left, still couldn't hit Mayweather. Manny Pacquiao tried to trap Mayweather in the corner 7 times, and Mayweather got out of the corner 7 times too fast. And this is what you hear Manny say: "He's too fast. I can't hit him. He's too fast. I can't hit him. He's too fast." Of course you can't hit him. He's too damn fast. And Mayweather wins the fight. And people were stunned that Mayweather's record at that time was like 48-0, and now he was 49-0. And then Mayweather gives us a fight from another sport. He challenges Conor McGregor from UFC to fight him in a boxing fight and makes his record 50-0. He beats Conor McGregor. A lot of people thought Mayweather was going to get whooped. Finally, after 20 years of boxing, his record finally get broken. And Mayweather proves once again he still got it. And this is when Mayweather's like 38, 39. And he has an incredible record of 50-0. Now, here's the thing that you got to understand. For these two to fight in their prime, it would have probably had to be, and here's what people don't get. If it's Sugar Ray Leonard in his prime, and you take Mayweather from the 1990s, and you have Mayweather come in the 70s and the 80s, you would probably see the same fights. You would have probably seen, before you could get Sugar Ray Leonard versus Marvin Hagler, it would probably be Mayweather versus Marvin Hagler. And Mayweather would probably have to fight Marvelous Marvin Hagler 3 times just to get to Sugar Ray Leonard. Instead of seeing Thomas Hitman Hearns versus Sugar Ray Leonard, you would have probably seen him fight Mayweather. And Mayweather probably would have won those fights. Now, the first fight would probably end in a tie, and I'll tell you why. Because even if Sugar Ray Leonard can outlast Mayweather for 15 rounds, the way Mayweather trained, most athletes could not train in hot temperature weather, okay? Mayweather would run 10 to 13 miles in Las Vegas heat, okay? And the way Mayweather trained is unorthodox. Sugar Ray Leonard fights unorthodox style. So the first fight they would have in their primes would probably end in a tie. No fighter would actually have their belt taken. Now in a rematch, Sugar Ray Leonard most definitely in the rematch will beat Mayweather. He wouldn't be able to knock out Mayweather, but he would win the rematch, which was set up for a third fight. And it would be the first time in boxing history that Mayweather had his undefeated record broken. He wouldn't be 50-0 today if Sugar Ray Leonard came in this time period. I'm going to get to that. But if we're talking about Mayweather and Sugar Ray Leonard's time period, he would not have an undefeated record. Instead of being 50-0, his record would probably be broken at 20-0 or 30-0. His record would get broken. Even if Mayweather got to 35-0, he would still have his record broken at some point. Mayweather would eventually win the third and final fight of that trilogy. And that will show that that's how the fight will go. Now, if you took Sugar Ray Leonard from the 70s and the 80s and put him in the late 90s, early 2000s, and had Sugar Ray Leonard fight the same way in his prime, you would probably be seeing fights like Sugar Ray Leonard versus Roy Jones Jr., Sugar Ray Leonard versus Antonio Tarver, Sugar Ray Leonard versus Jermaine Taylor, Bernard Hopkins, he would fight all of them and he would beat all of them until there was only one fighter left in his division, and that would be Floyd Money Mayweather Jr. Some might say, what about Manny? Okay, Sugar Ray Leonard versus Manny Pacquiao, and that would probably turn into a trilogy of 3 fights. It'd be like when he fought Roberto Duran. Sugar Ray Leonard would probably lose the first fight, win the second fight, and it would set up Manny versus Sugar Ray Leonard 3. And Sugar Ray Leonard in that fight would end in a tie. And then when there's no one left in that division, it would be those two fighting for the title. Now, if Sugar Ray Leonard came into this time period, you're gonna see Sugar Ray Leonard win. So basically, this is to explain what would happen if these two ever clash. Now, this one is not as long as the first episode. Now, I promise you in the third episode, I'm going to cut it short and make it between 15 to 20 minutes, because sometimes when I do these uploads, it does take 2 to 3 hours, sometimes 4 hours for these videos to upload, and you'd be like, why does it take so long? Until next time, peace.